My name is Eleanor. I am 72 years old, and nothing in my quiet life could have prepared me for the voice note that slipped into my phone that afternoon. My hands were trembling as I pressed play. The sound of Clara's voice, my daughter-in-law, filled the room. At first, I thought it was something simple, maybe about dinner or a message she meant to send me. But the tone was sharp, cruel, nothing like the polite smile she wore around me. She was talking about me, mocking me, saying things I could barely believe were coming out of her mouth. She called me dead weight. She called me a burden. My chest felt like it might burst open. But the part that made me nearly drop the phone was when she admitted she never loved my son, my David, the boy I gave my whole life to. She said she only stayed with him for his money. Then, just as I thought I couldn't take more, she mentioned another man's name. I froze. My heart screamed, should I stop listening? But something deep inside whispered, keep going, Eleanor, keep going. And so I did. What would you have done, paused it or listened all the way through? People don't always see what life looked like before the storm hit. My days used to be simple. I had a small house in Ohio, a porch with 2 rocking chairs, and a garden I cared for like it was a child. I lost my husband years ago, so it was just me and my boy, David. I worked double shifts for decades to put food on our table, to make sure he had everything he needed. When he married Clara, I thought my sacrifices were finally worth it. He looked happy, and that was all a mother could ask for. At first, I told myself Clara just needed time to warm up to me. She seemed polite in front of David, but her eyes, they carried something colder, something that made me feel like an outsider in my own family. Do you know that feeling when someone smiles at you, but you can sense the dislike behind it? I brushed it off. I told myself I was being paranoid. But the first Thanksgiving with Clara proved me wrong. What happened that day planted a seed I tried to ignore, but it would grow into something much darker. I can still see that Thanksgiving dinner, as if it happened yesterday. My table was covered in food, the turkey browned just right, the pies cooling by the window. I had worked all day, humming to myself, excited for David to come home with his wife. When they walked in, Clara wrinkled her nose at the smell of my cooking, though she didn't say it outright. It was little things at first, her rolling her eyes at the old lace tablecloth, her whispering something in David's ear that made him smirk. I wanted to let it go. But then, as we sat down, she commented loudly about how I really should try new recipes, because nobody eats this kind of food anymore. The room fell silent. David's fork froze halfway to his mouth. I laughed nervously, trying to cover the sting, but I felt my heart sink. My own son didn't defend me. He just avoided my eyes. That was the first moment I thought, maybe she's already turning him against me. And that thought, it scared me more than I can tell you. Because if she could take away his respect for me, what else could she take? By the time Christmas came, I was already walking on eggshells. I decorated the house with lights, hung the stockings like always, but my heart wasn't in it. When they arrived, Clara wore a bright red dress, stunning as always, but her words cut sharper than any knife. In front of the family, she accused me of being too involved in David's life. She said it like a joke, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. My cheeks burned. I felt the sting of humiliation, like I had been slapped. I glanced at David, begging him with my eyes to say something, anything. But he just gave a nervous laugh, the kind a man gives when he's caught between 2 people he loves. He didn't defend me. Instead, he poured Clara another glass of wine. I smiled through the pain, pretending everything was fine, but inside I felt something crack. When everyone left that night, the house felt colder than ever. I couldn't shake the fear that maybe Clara wanted me gone, not just from the table, but from David's life entirely. And the scariest part? I wasn't sure if she had already succeeded. Loneliness crept into my home like an unwanted guest after that Christmas. My phone rang less often. My porch stayed empty. Even Sunday visits, which had been a tradition for years, slowly disappeared. Every time I asked David why he hadn't come by, he said Clara was busy, or that they had other plans. It was always Clara's schedule, Clara's decisions. I told myself it was normal, that young couples needed their own lives, but the silence in my home told another story. One night, after a family gathering, I overheard Clara's voice drifting from the kitchen. She didn't know I was standing just around the corner. I'll never forget her words. She was on the phone with someone and she said, "She's such a burden. I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending." My knees almost gave out beneath me. I had never felt so small, so unwanted in my own son's life. And yet I kept quiet. I pretended I hadn't heard. But deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning of something much worse. The first real blow came on a quiet evening when I walked into the hallway and heard Clara's voice through the crack of the door. She was laughing on the phone, but her laughter carried poison. "She's too old-fashioned, a total burden. I swear, if David even suggests she moves in with us, I'll leave him." I froze. My heart thudded in my chest so hard, I thought she would hear it.
She was talking about me.
I slipped back to my room, tears filling my eyes. I could barely breathe. The air felt heavy with betrayal. I wanted to call David right then, tell him everything, but my fear stopped me. What if he believed her over me? What if I lost him completely? So I said nothing. I smiled when they visited. I laughed at Clara's jokes, but inside, I was breaking apart piece by piece. And yet I kept thinking, how long can I keep pretending I don't know what she really thinks of me? Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have told him? My answer came sooner than I thought. One morning, my phone buzzed. I looked down and saw a message from Clara. I opened it, thinking it was about dinner or groceries, but as I read, my hands went cold. The words on that screen weren't meant for me. They were meant for someone else. If his old mother moves in, I'll leave him. I'm not babysitting some useless woman. My heart pounded, my vision blurred. For a moment, I couldn't even move. She hadn't just thought these things. She was telling others. I sat in my kitchen chair staring at that screen, the sound of the clock ticking louder and louder. I should have confronted her, but I didn't. I deleted the message, but it burned into my memory like fire. After that, I tried to make myself smaller, quieter, invisible in their lives. I didn't want to be the reason my son's marriage cracked. But deep down, I wondered, was I already the problem in their eyes? The night that proved just how alone I was came not long after. I had been feeling weak all day, a sharp pain in my chest. I reached for my phone, dialed David, but there was no answer. I tried again, then Clara, but still nothing. Hours passed. My body gave out, and I collapsed on the living room floor. The cold of the hardwood seeped into me as I lay there, whispering prayers, hoping someone would come. It was a neighbor who found me the next morning, horrified, rushing me to the hospital. When David arrived, he was pale, shaking, apologizing over and over. But Clara stood in the corner, her arms crossed, her face tight with annoyance rather than concern. Later, when David stepped out to talk to the doctor, Clara leaned close and whispered, "You scared him half to death. Don't do that again." Her words sliced deeper than the pain in my chest. Tell me, if someone said that to you, would you ever look at them the same way again? After that night, things only grew colder. Clara barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was in clipped, sharp words that made me feel like an intruder. One afternoon, she cornered me in the kitchen while David was outside. Her voice was low, icy. "Don't think you'll always have a place here. Sooner or later, he'll choose me. My hands shook as I clutched the counter, my breath caught in my throat. I wanted to shout back, to tell her she couldn't take my son away from me, but my voice betrayed me. I stayed silent, swallowing my pride, tears burning my eyes. That night, I sat at my desk and began writing letters to David, letters he might never read, letters that told him the truth about who his wife really was. Maybe one day, when I was gone, he would know I tried to protect him. But every day, the question haunted me, should I tell him now, or should I wait until the evidence was undeniable? The moment everything shifted came when Clara started talking about my house. She wanted David to convince me to sell it, saying they needed the money for a bigger home. I felt my stomach drop as I listened to them at my kitchen table, Clara's hand gripping David's arm, her voice sugar-sweet.
Think about it, David.
We could finally upgrade, give the kids a better future. David hesitated, his eyes flicking toward me with guilt, but I saw the wheels turning in his mind. My home, my life security, was suddenly on the chopping block. I sat in silence, a lump in my throat, pretending to sip my tea while fear clawed at my chest. That was when my phone buzzed on the counter. A notification popped up. It was a voice note from Clara. She must have sent it by mistake. My fingers trembled as I pressed play, and the sound of her voice once again filled the room. This time, I knew I was about to hear something I could never unhear. The moment I pressed play, my body froze. Clara's voice filled the room again, but this time it wasn't just careless words, it was venom. She called me dead weight, said she hated every second of pretending to care about me. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to listen. Then the knife twisted deeper. She laughed as she admitted she never loved David. My sweet boy, the one I sacrificed my whole life for, nothing but a paycheck to her. She said she only married him because he was stable, because she needed a man who wouldn't question her. My hands shook so bad, I almost dropped the phone, but I couldn't stop. Every word burned into me like fire. My heart begged me to delete it, to pretend I hadn't heard, but something stronger whispered, "Don't you dare. You need to know it all." Would you have kept listening, even if it destroyed you? The longer the message played, the darker it got. Clara's voice turned low, mocking, almost gleeful. She spoke of another man. She said his name, and my blood ran cold. She said she couldn't wait until the money lined up, so she could finally leave David for good. She joked about how blind he was, how pathetic it was that he adored her. She called me pathetic too, said I clung to David because I had nothing else left. Her laugh was cruel, echoing in my ears long after the note ended. I sat there in silence, staring at the phone, feeling like my whole world had cracked. Should I protect David from this truth? Or should I rip away the blindfold and let him see the woman he married? My heart was at war. Tell me, if you were me, would you risk breaking your son's heart to save his future? I couldn't sleep that night. I walked the halls of my little house, hearing Clara's words over and over. David's face as a boy kept flashing in my mind, his first day of school, his high school graduation, the way he hugged me after his father died and whispered, "It's just us now, Mom." How could I be the one to crush him? But then I remembered the way Clara sneered at me, the way she wanted my home, my silence, my absence. The truth pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't escape. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands around a cold cup of tea, thinking, maybe I could hold it all in, maybe it would pass. Then I heard the knock. David's voice called from outside, steady but urgent. My heart raced. He had come unexpectedly, and I knew in that moment I couldn't hide forever. When David stepped inside, he looked worried. He asked why my face was pale, why my eyes were swollen from tears. I tried to smile, to deflect, but the lump in my throat was too heavy. He pressed harder, begging me to tell him what was wrong. Finally, with shaking hands, I picked up my phone, opened the voice note, and pressed play. I couldn't look at him as Clara's words poured into the room. His breath caught, then he began pacing, his hand pulling at his hair. No, she wouldn't. His voice cracked, and then the anger came, raw and sharp. He slammed his fist against the wall, tears falling freely. The woman he loved, the wife he trusted, her betrayal was laid bare. I wanted to comfort him, but before I could, the front door opened. Clara walked in, her eyes landing on the phone just as the message ended. The explosion that followed was like nothing I've ever seen. David confronted her, his voice shaking with rage and heartbreak. Clara tried to laugh it off at first, said it was taken out of context, that I had twisted things. But when David played it again, her mask cracked. The venom spilled out, all of it. She shouted at me, called me a meddling old woman, told David he'd never be enough for her. He told her to pack her things and leave, his voice broken but firm. She spat her last poison at me before slamming the door, her footsteps fading into the night. David collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands. I held him like I did when he was a child, whispering that the truth, though painful, would set him free. Later, he found proof of her affair, her lies unraveling fully before him. And in the silence that followed, I realized something. Sometimes love means breaking a heart in order to save it. My story is proof that silence can destroy, but truth, no matter how heavy, can heal. If you were in my shoes, would you have stayed quiet, or would you have spoken up?